For Superman fans, hosted by Superman fans, and focused around all things, you guessed it, Superman. After all, we are aspiring Kryptonians. From comics, TV, film and animation, each week we discuss our thoughts on the latest releases, news and even some retrospective reviews. So without further ado, let's get the show on the road. Hello and welcome to episode 39 of the Aspiring Kryptonians podcast with me, Tasman, Dave and Sam.
Hello.
How you guys doing?
Doing good. Doing good. It's always a good month.
Every time we jump on the podcast, it always reminds me that I need to get that intro updated because you're not even on it. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about all things Superman, of course. So his 85th anniversary, which was last week. Was it last week? Or the week before? 10 years of injustice and its links to the adventures of Superman John Kent. Say that again, Dave?
The 85th was in April, so it
should just flying by, so it feels like it was last week.
I consider it an all-year-round thing, honestly.
That's it, yeah, exactly. And of course, the 90s throwback in comics, which is still making a comeback. We've got Cyborg Superman coming back, Superboy, not the Eradicator yet, but where is he? And there's so many more that are just making a comeback, and it's quite weird but exciting to see some familiar faces come back through. So this weekend it's been Free Comic Book Day yesterday. So did you guys do anything to celebrate?
I actually found out it was a Free Comic Day while I was out. I'm just shopping out with my dad, and there was like a rack of free comic books. I didn't really see any DC ones. There was a bunch of Marvel ones. I think he picked up a Star Trek one. They're always nice, like free comic book ones, because it's like three in one. It's almost like a promo. But no, I found out while I was out. I was like, oh wow, sweet, Free Comic Book Day, May 7th.
It's one of those things like you even know about it, but it's not really advertised that much. If you don't know about it, you're not going to know that it's Free Comic Book Day. So yeah, that's fair enough. How about you, Dave? You didn't do anything?
Yeah, I took my my kids to it. I mean, it's because you're right. There wasn't a lot of DC stuff. There was the Night Terror thing that's kind of promoting, and then there's a couple of Girl Taking Over and Clark and Lex, which were young reader graphic novel stuff. So, but no, they picked up some stuff. They had a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. What else did the girls pick up? There's something funny. I can't remember, but there was a lot of good stuff for them. And there's a Nightmare Before Christmas thing, which is huge in my house. Stuff like that. So we had a good time. I mean, it's not the spectacle it used to be.
Yeah,
I think your internet connection's a little bit iffy, Dave. You keep getting in and out. Where I live in Worcester, there's not actually a lot going on for Free Comic Book Day. None of the there's one comic book shop and they only do like back issues. They don't do any new issues, so they didn't really participate. So I went to Birmingham to one of the Forbidden Planet shops there, and got the free comic books. But they had a limit on how many you could pick up per person, which was a shame because I wanted a wide range of them, but I could only pick 3. So I picked all of the DC, the Superman related ones that I knew about, which was, as Dave said, the Girl Taking Over, Night Terrors, and Clark and Lex, which I haven't read yet, but I've got them in a bag ready to go. But yeah, it was a shame that it was limited, but at least I got to go, and they did loads of discounts and stuff in the shop, which was quite cool. So I picked up some Superman comic books, which were half price, and graphic novels and things like that. So it was pretty cool. And hello to Morgan. Hi, Morgan.
Hey. I think the best free comic book I ever picked up, I think it was either 9 or 10 years ago. I think it was like a director's cut of Superman Unchained, the Scott Snyder series. It was like the director's cut of it. It's like a couple more pages than the first issue. That one was neat. I think they also did Adventures of Superman. I think I still have that one somewhere.
I've got the
Oh, Dave, your internet. We can't hear you.
I know
He-
it's so bad. I might have to like reboot myself or something.
Yeah, maybe just do a restart and join us afresh, see what happens. But for me, with at the comic book shop, they had a limited edition Night Terrors one, which I didn't know anything about until I got to the shop, which was it was the same cover but a foil one, and you paid £10 for it, and I'm sure it's worth a lot more. But they did an offer where they donated the £10 to charity, which was pretty cool.
Nice.
Morgan's saying, "Turn off your camera, Dave. It might help."
True.
And hello to
No one wants to see me anyway.
Dave, it's not that. Oh, okay. So yeah, it's been a few weeks. But as we mentioned, we recently celebrated Superman's 85th anniversary.
I'll jump back in when I can.
Okay. So, well, first of all, 85 has never looked so good. But did any of you guys celebrate that? Sam, did you? Well, stop, Sam. Did you do anything to celebrate Superman?
No, whenever the anniversary comes around, I remember the 80th anniversary. I still have like Funko. DC does a bunch of like releases for it. They release like anniversary like books for it. On the DC shop, they have the 85th book. It's like, another omnibus of all the best Superman series. We should do a review for that because it looks like it's like another great like.
Yeah, I haven't actually.
Yeah.
I've seen that it's out, but I haven't actually looked into it to see what stories are in there. But it's a thick book. It's about that thick, isn't it? It's huge.
Yeah. No, it's a great like coffee table like book, like the one they released for like the 1000th like Action Comics issue.
Yeah.
But no, honestly, I love picking up Superman merchandise like via whatever shape or form. When you see like the sticker of like 80 or 85, it's like it's like a time mark. You're like, oh, I remember where I was like during this or that. No, and 85th was fun because now we have like feels like there's more Superman comic book series out than Batman ones out.
Well, I don't know about that because every time we look on the review site, there's so many Batman titles, which I'm just so glad that we don't
like mainline ones, like because I feel like there's a lot of Dawn of DC Superman titles. I really do. It feels like great. It feels like the only one we're missing without her main series is Supergirl.
Yeah, that's true.
But now 85th anniversary is always cool. I wish like DC put out like for like the 75th, they still put out like a really cool like animation. Like from like his like conception, like like screen and like radio. It was really cool. I think we've seen a little bit of that, but
they always seem to come around really quickly though. Like I remember when it was the 80th anniversary, like that felt like a big deal, and then this one just sort of crept up on us as well.
I feel like it's like people do stuff for it all year round. Like
and I think
the 5th year.
Yeah, well, this is like a Superman podcast, and we obviously write for the Superman website, so we definitely celebrate it all year round. But yeah, on that day I was actually away on holiday, but I took a break from my holidays to actually work on the website, and I did a load of interviews with Superman related writers and talents. I spoke with Dorado Quick and Yasmin Flores Montanas about their 3-part still story in Action Comics, which is coming up, which is really good. I spoke to Philip Kennedy Johnson about his current story arc in Action Comics, and then Chandler Riggs, who voices Superman in Justice League Cross Ruby, the most recent DC animated film that's just came out. So if you guys are interested in any of those, feel free to have a look on the website because they are all there. But yeah, there were all sorts of 85th anniversary releases out as well. Like you said, that big, I wouldn't say a graphic novel because it's like a mix. The
omnibus, I think the word, isn't it?
Yeah, there's the coins that we wrote about. There was a clothing range from New Era, which sold out. Sadly, I really, really wanted that, but yeah, can't find it anywhere.
DC shop online like completely renovated their Superman section. Like it's like all like brand for the 85th. New merchandise sells out regularly. Like you can't get like the Superman like 79 like merch anymore because it's sold out like so quickly.
Yeah, they did a lot. But yeah, so much cool stuff. But this anniversary just goes to show how incredible a character Superman is. He's done the test of time. He's still one of the most iconic and most popular and loved superheroes of all time. So as part of that, to celebrate, I suppose we're probably a little bit late in terms of the podcast, but we just want to sort of highlight our favorite things about the character. So if you're watching live, feel free to join in and let us know what your favorite thing about Superman is, whether it's a TV series, a comic, a particular moment, the character itself, anything like that. But Sam, why do you love Superman?
I really started getting into Superman when I was like 16. It wasn't like I really liked him like when I was like a kid. I just loved the colorful costume because blue's favorite color as a kid. But I really got into comics around like when I was like 16 when like New 52 was starting up, and I really liked the character like of Clark because like as like a person who was studying journalism too, it was cool seeing like someone you could relate to like as like the person rather than the hero, which is cool. And also Superman just has like all like the original like yes either pageantry or art of the superhero is right with like the cape and everything and how it just feels right, like either when you're watching like other superhero material like ones out now like either Jupiter's Legacy or Invincible, like like where it comes from. It's like watching like a Frankenstein like almost like parody, and then like you go back to watch like the original one. It's like it's really neat in that regard. And I think little me always liked Superman because whenever he was in a video game, I never lost with him. First like game I ever really played as Superman was Mortal Kombat versus DC, and it was like the Christopher Reeve.
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
They used like the Alex Ross design, so it's like they all looked real human and like warm. They didn't look like animated characters, so that was like a way for me to like know him almost like as a person, which was really cool. And again, like we'll continue on in the Injustice conversation, but
yeah, I was gonna say,
man, in video games, it's neat. I just wish we had more. And yeah, I've been reading like I have the full run of the New 52 ones. Like not too many people like the New 52. It's very like debated among I think in DC, but that's what. Oh, Dave's back. Hi.
Hey, Dave.
Hi. I'm back again.
Oh, that's better. Yeah. No, so just backing off that, yeah, just always like and I've been following like the lexicon like ever since, and I'm like nice. I really, really enjoy it. I enjoy writing about it. It's fun.
Good. Dave, we were just talking about Superman's 85th anniversary and why the character stood the test of time of 85 years and still being one of the most popular characters of all time. We were just talking about what's your favorite thing. What is it that you love about Superman? And Morgan's very happy to see you. Dave's back.
Ah, yay! Oh, was that? I don't know. I mean, I've always been enamored with him. Like, so I saw. Of course, I wasn't very old. I mean, I wasn't quite born yet when Superman 77 first came out. But when I first saw him on the screen, and flying, like that was just a big thing for a little kid. It was like this dude can fly. I grew up more on. The Adventures of Superman with George Reeves, and that stuff. I don't know. I just really, really took to him and never let go. And I didn't get into comics until his death. That was because I kind of told myself, I was like, well, if this character is so important to me, then this moment should be important to me, right? Right. So, that's when I started getting my own money, like when stores and route things like that. So, because I didn't grow up with the most luxurious lifestyle, so my parents were all like, comic books, what? No, you don't get those. You get food and clothes and things you need. So I couldn't argue with that, but no, I think he's the ultimate good guy. Like everything about him is just always like hope and goodness. And I mean, even when he's back in the day when he was like the crusader of justice and throwing people out of windows, he was only throwing like really terrible people out of windows, So, and it was a different sensibility then, it was kind of like, oh geez, but, now it's all like, oh no. Then it was all like, yeah, that guy deserved it, So, it's a little different, but he's changed. He's changed with that. Like those sensibilities have evolved and they've stayed current, and just recently in a little spoiler, in Action Comics, what he does with Metallo, that was kind of new. Like, usually he's just beat face, and this time I was like, okay, now you've had your tantrum, let's see what we can do to help you. So that's just, I don't know. I think that's just a template that all heroes follow, and I think they have followed before him. He's obviously not the first, but he's been the one that's just kind of captured the imagination and stayed with it. So
Well, this is
I think
it. Yeah, you say he's not the first, but he's the first one everybody remembers, and that's a big. Well, I don't remember the
superheroes. As far as superheroes.
Yeah.
Yeah. As far as superheroes go, I just meant that epitome of goodness. He's not.
Oh yeah, of course.
He's not the first one to do it.
I just as you know, I love the character. My personal favorite thing, it's kind of hard to narrow it down, but you both have pretty much said everything that I need to say. He is the epitome of good. He's everything. He's iconic in terms of legendary status and imagery as well. Like as soon as you see a picture of Superman, you know exactly who it is. As soon as you see that symbol, you know exactly what they're talking about. But for me, my favorite thing is that he is this incredibly powerful being from another planet, yet all he wants to do is be like us, or be one of us. And usually, I think in terms of other superheroes, for example, well, I guess not necessarily Batman, but Batman, Spider-Man, there's all these other characters of superheroes. It's kind of the opposite way around, where they are human, but they want to be something more. They want to be better than, not necessarily better, but gooder or better, saving people better than everybody else, to be a god or whatever that might be to them. And I think Superman's the total opposite of that. And I think it works really well for his character, and it makes it more relatable. Just reading some comments here. So Morgan says, as an expat kid, he was my only character that I could get comics off. Plus my folks got me a Superman t-shirt and a bedspread from the UK. Oh my God, he's going for it. Go on, Morgan. He was a very happy 5-year-old and who remembers the 80s wallpaper. So I'm not sadly, but I'm not old enough to know what the 80s wallpaper is. But I've seen some timely wallpaper. I haven't seen any Superman one though. That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. That was another thing. The whole just like genre of superpower, just people just flying through the air and just hammering. I feel like that also like stems from him. So it's and I love reading comic books like that. Very action heavy, where like the fight choreography is like panel by panel. And there's some Superman comics that really, really get it down right.
Yeah.
Always cool. New 52 did a lot of that. Rebirth also had really good Superman comics. Like definitely some best ofs there. Like single issues, honestly.
I'd have to go. I don't think I've actually read the Rebirth. I might have done. It's all kind of blurred into one for me, like because I've just been reading. I think I was like you were saying, Dave, you were quite late into comics. I was really late into reading comics, so it was the Dean Cain series that got me started on Superman, and then it went to Superman the movie, which my granddad showed me, and then Superman Returns was the one where all the merchandise came out. I went to the cinema to watch it several times. That's the first Superman film I saw in the cinema, first one where I bought all of the merchandise that I could find, because it was out. Like Superman the movie it had merchandise, but at the time that I was younger, it wasn't around. And then, as Man of Steel and stuff came out, I just got more and more hooked to the character. And then it was just before Bendis started to take over. That's when I started reading the comics like properly. Not before, I used to just read them one by one, or I'd get one and it would be a random one in any series, and I'll just read that and not really understand the story. So it would be like issue 125 of something, and I'll be like, I have no idea what's going on. So it was, from the early Bendis stuff for Superman, that's where I really started reading it and sticking to the story. And now I'm going back to the start and reading from the beginning. So I've read about, I think I'm on 1959. So it's like 21 years of comics I've read so far in 2-3 years, which is pretty impressive, but it's going to take me probably the rest of my lifetime to do the rest.
As the Justice, like, will you know, like, by the time, like, when the Justice League, like, officially forms, like, is that reflected in the Superman series? Because I know the Justice League came about in, like, late 50s, early 60s?
Yeah, I haven't got to the Justice League yet. So where I am at the moment, so what I'm doing, I'm not just reading the Superman titles. I've made a list of every comic that Superman is featured in, even if it's a cameo. So I use loads of databases and stuff to find out this information. I've just written it, and I've written it for the entire well, from then to now, and I'm just now going through reading a comic per day, and kind of documenting who's in it. So I've got like Lois Lane, Supergirl, and all that stuff. So at the moment, it's very Superboy. There's a lot of Superboy. There's a lot of Jimmy Hoffa, a lot of Lois Lane, because she's I think her series has just started where I am, and Supergirl has literally just come into the mix. So they're not, and of course the World's Finest. So, I quite enjoy those ones actually. They're probably my favourites at the moment. They're just really fun and random and wacky to read. But yeah, I haven't got to the Justice League yet, but I don't think they're very far away.
It's like late 50s, a lot of Superboy. I wonder if it's like late 50s. I think like Archie Comics was out. Maybe they're trying to do like more like Archie Comics, like teen storylines with them.
Yeah, there's Superman's Pal Jimmy Olsen. That's one of the ones that's coming up quite a lot in this list at the moment where I am, and they are just the wackiest stories. And when the series came out a few years ago, Superman's Pal Jimmy Olsen, I didn't appreciate how wacky the original comics were, because I was reading it and I was like, this is crazy. Like, where's he turns into a giant gorilla at some point, a giant turtle, and I'm like, where is this all coming from? And now I know. So it's quite nice to see where it came from.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of anniversaries, Injustice turns 10 years old this year, which is crazy. This is many people's introduction to Tom Taylor. I was a big fan of Injustice, especially the game. I didn't really, at the time, I didn't really appreciate the creators of things. I was just like, this is cool. But knowing that it's Tom Taylor makes total sense now. But yeah, at the moment, he appears to be on every big title going, writing so many incredible different stories. He's got Adventures of Superman, Deceased, Dark Knights of Steel, Son of Kal-El, to name a few. I'm sure there's many more other ones that aren't Superman-centric that he's working on as well, which are doing very well. I think Nightwing is probably one of his biggest things at the moment. But Sam, I know you're a huge Injustice fan.
They talk about the game and the comic, like full story. So, as Injustice was coming out, like mid 2012, mid 2012, it was at like a gaming convention. NetherRealm Studios, the people who made Mortal Kombat, showed demo clips of Batman versus Solomon Grundy. It was Batman, Solomon Grundy, and Superman were like the first three characters confirmed for Injustice. They showed the fight. They showed how you could like interact with the environment. They showed all the movesets, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, we're getting a really good Justice League DC fighter." And at that point, we had no idea about the plot. We just thought it was just just a big mash. And as like more characters got like added, they started doing like dev like fighting tournaments. And sometimes like the voice actors, like George Newbern was Superman there, from the
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't realize that.
Yep.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, they brought back a lot of the Justice League voices, like Kevin Conroy's Batman in it still, like all like, and they were like doing commentary on it. And when they finally show like Superman's super move where he like punches them up into the upper atmosphere, and we're just like, okay, we need to play this game now. And as like more characters got like added. When I remember when Black Adam got confirmed, Doomsday got confirmed. We're like, this roster's absolutely stacked. And then the biggest game changer of all dropped. It was revealed that Superman was going to be the bad guy. But, like, there was like a trailer of him like giving like a One Earth speech, but you never see him. But you're like, this may be him. And then in one of the dev games, they used the Regime Superman skin. And when he inevitably wins, at the very end of his fight, he goes, "Kneel before me like Zod."
Oh.
And everyone was like, "Oh no, this game's gonna be absolutely crazy." But we know there's gonna be a good Superman too, because they had like the Clark Kent like one too. So and then the comic series came out, and to this day, I think it's like one of the most like issue 1 of it by Tom Taylor. I think it's like one of my most valuable comics actually. I don't think like the first one, they didn't print too much of it, and the cover's nothing special. It's just the game cover. And that showed you how like Superman became a bad guy. Like, oh, Lois Lane is dead in this universe.
Oh, yeah.
And sort of like went crazy. It gave you the full like background story. And the game came out around like when the first year of the comics ended. It was like 12 issues, but the comic kept going on. Like as like new content kept getting added to the game, like the comic kept going on for 5 years. Like,
I love how you know exactly where you were when you found out about it. That's interesting.
No, but junior year, me and my friend stayed up all night playing it like on release day. Like if we picked it up from GameStop, It was back when GameStop did pre-order bonuses, so I got the Red Sun skin pack. I got Superman Red Sun, I got Wonder Woman Red Sun, and Solomon Grundy Red Sun too, which was a really cool thing. It was neat. It was a really fun game. I think we like beat it in like 4 hours, 5 hours. It's a tournament ladder. It's like a Mortal Kombat game. It was really fun. Like really enjoyed it, and like it's like 10, and like seeing, and when the second one came out, it was kind of a big deal too. We were kind of underwhelmed by the roster, and a little bit of the story, but the first one's still like way better in terms of like game mechanics and gameplay and just like the stages there. It's great to see it like now like being accepted as part of like the DC like canon. It looks like, and especially like I love calling like all of Tom Taylor's works the Taylorverse, like Dark Knight, like John Kent, Injustice, because it's all him. Like it's all like how about him. You could count him deceased in there too.
And they've kind of confirmed that all these universes still exist, because I think we'll talk about this in a second, but in Adventures of Superman, John Kent, he kind of enters a multiverse, and we see, I think, Jurassic League's in there, which was pretty cool to see. You've got the Dark Knights of Steel, all of these universes that Tom Taylor, he didn't do Jurassic League, but he's done quite a few of them, like Injustice, this one, and Dark Knights of Steel. So it's cool to see, and there definitely is a Taylorverse created.
No, I love it. I love following it. In Dark Crisis Big Bang, a lot of like DC like continuities got confirmed. Like Superman 78 and Batman 89 were like in the same Earth. I think they also confirmed that Injustice was there on Earth 49. Even Adam West Batman is there. Like it's all connected. It's neat.
Yep.
Yeah. What did you have a big experience with Injustice, Dave, or is it one of those things that you just know about?
It's one of those things I just know about. So when it first came out, there was another comic out, I think, called Irredeemable by Mark Waid, and it was kind of like about a Superman character that went bad. You know, but he was always bad. Like he was posing to be a good guy.
It's done really well.
Yeah, and it's also kind of similar in vein as Invincible, which was also at the same time about a Superman character that
2003
put a plan in place and went bad. So Injustice came out, and I was just like, I'm tired of Superman being a bad guy. So I didn't really even pay any attention. And then it was like, oh, it's a video game. Okay, like this isn't ever going to be canon. Like this is just a story. Sure, like people can have fun with it, they can enjoy it. I'm not gonna poo-poo on it, right? And then my son, years go by, and my son was born in 2011. So let's see, about 3 years ago. So that would have been 2020 during the shutdowns. We really got into downloading video games through streaming services and stuff because we couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything. And Injustice 2 was on there. And, it's a Mortal Kombat type of game. And the graphics are great. And, if you play the storyline with different characters, they have different endings and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, what is this all about? I mean, it got a sequel, So I know more about Injustice 2 through my son. But, the rest of it, I just kind of put off in the back, like, I don't care. And then all of a sudden, here we are, John Kent's going to deal with the Injustice world and, that type of stuff. And that was another thing I didn't like about Injustice was like, okay, well, we've already had the story where Lois dies and Superman goes off, and that's called Kingdom Come. So now here we have him going evil. That to me, it just, I don't know, it didn't gel with me at the beginning. And now it's kind of like, okay, I can see where this is going. Let's do something with this. It's interesting to me now, but it wasn't then. So I don't know.
It's a strange like instance. Like Grant Morrison once said something really, really funny about like Injustice, and he's like, like if someone like kills someone near and dear to me, I'm not going to become a dictator. I don't think Superman would either.
But
I think Injustice won the game.
The least likely character to become a dictator if that happened. Yeah. Like, isn't it?
Sorry.
No,
the first game just sold it well because like it's told from the perspective of like the Earth we're familiar with. Like it's them going over to that Earth and like interacting with those characters. and so it kind of like sells it because it gives like the Superman you're familiar with. And yeah, like do I need? Can I spoil it, or like the first game came out like 10 years ago?
I mean, if no one knows how it works now,
I think so. I think people have had time to play.
Yeah, like the last like fight is between the two Supermen, and it's a really fun like ending to the game. And they get Regime Superman into the a Red Sun prison, and like Superman of our Earth reflects that maybe, just maybe, if it was him, he may do the same thing, like and like Batman's just like, yeah, well, I'll be there to stop you, and that's just how it ends. But Superman's combat ladder, like the one that gives him a unique ending, it says like at the end of like Injustice, he did a failsafe on himself because he's like, what if there is a chance I could go bad? He gives like so he ingests like a kryptonite capsule that just stays in his body, and like someone has to press a button for it to open and activate. And if like he shows like the most subtle of signs of becoming bad, someone has to press it. And every week, like a new Justice League member gets the button, and the only one who doesn't get it is Batman, because he's never going to press it. He's like, yeah, you're not.
I don't know. I think Batman would probably be the most likely.
He would not press it. He wouldn't kill him because it kills him. It doesn't weaken him. It kills him.
Yeah, Batman can kill him.
He's not. Would he press that button? He's like, no, I'm not. It was somewhat of a cool ending, but yeah, how they did the Injustice movie, that was like kind of like it wasn't the best adaptation of the comics. There were so many good moments in the comics that they just sort of like squandered in it, but they ended it a little differently than the game.
I think with things like that, all the animated adaptations, or even live action versions of the games or the comics or whatever, you have to change it up, otherwise people know exactly how it's going to end. It's boring at that point. You have to change something. I think with the time for the animated film, like it's really hard. Like I did interviews with some of the directors and stuff, and they all every time I do one, they always say they don't have enough time to tell the full story how they wanted to.
Oh, it should have been a TV series, with like 3 seasons,
Injustice is such a huge story. Like it could have had, it needed more than one part for starters. I think they just had to cut so much out and push it all together. It just made it a little bit messy, but it was enjoyable. But for me, I didn't really. Well, I've only recently started reading the comics. I think I read Year Zero, which is the prequel. So I've read it in proper order, not release date. So I've read Year Zero, and I've probably read maybe about 10 or 12 issues of the first series. The game came first for me. That was the first thing that I knew about Injustice. Tekken is my kind of game. I love that kind of stuff. So when I found out there was a superhero version with Superman in it, I was there straight away. I bought the game. I spent hours on it. But for me, I have to say, I didn't like playing with Superman or Supergirl. I found I don't know what it is. Even with the Multiverses game, I found playing with the bigger and better characters was harder than playing with some of the younger or the smaller ones. Like Catwoman was my go-to character on Injustice. I always played with Catwoman.
Catwoman's good, yeah.
But I don't know. I just didn't find their combat very good.
I look at a lot of tier lists, and like strategy guys says that Superman is like, and Batman and Injustice, they're designed for beginners, but they could also like somewhat get like near like expert level combos with them.
This is it. I think that's what I think it is, because
there's a Bane combo that could like KO an entire health line if he's on all 3 tanks of Venom. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm not a button basher with games like that. I like to play properly, and I think with all the combos that they had, Catwoman had the best combo, and I think you've touched on it. It's a beginner's character, and I think maybe I just didn't get all the combos with Superman and Supergirl like I did with Catwoman.
Yeah, Harley Quinn was for me like that.
Oh yeah, she was
totally what you were talking about. Yeah, I love. Like anytime like my son could beat me, I'm like, all right, time to get a little payback. I put in Harley, and he's like, come on, Dad. So.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who else like I played as. Solomon Grundy had a good one. I wish he came back for the second game. I remember when they released General Zod as like an expansion for the first game, and they put in like the Man of Steel skin, so you could play as like Michael Shannon Zod and Henry Cavill Superman.
Cool.
Yeah, Morgan's just said I love the Man of Steel Henry Steel.
Oh, it was great.
What I did like about Injustice is, and it's the same for there's I haven't played it, but there's also a mobile game, isn't there, of DC characters. I like that you can, and even with multiverses, you can upgrade the skins, you can get different costumes, and you could do the same with Tekken as well. Like once you've got a certain amount of levels or points or coins or whatever, you could change the character, which I quite liked. But what I did hate was I was really good at the story mode, like completed it probably as quickly as you did, Sam. But then when you go on, I think at the time I had Xbox Live. And as soon as I went online, I realized how terrible I was at these games because I got beaten in seconds. Every time,
yeah. Online NetherRealm games, it's like, I played a lot of Mortal Kombat 11 online. It's tough when there's some people who are just like absolute just gods at the game, but sometimes you get lucky.
But with the things like that, like I think even with multiverses, like you go online and you fight real people, depending on what version of the game you play. I got the game before it even came out, and people were experts at it. Like I would just die straight away. I'm like, how do you do this?
I figured out Superman pretty well. It's all like it's all the downward smash and the flying people off the stadium. Yeah.
Or throwing them up in the air off the stadium.
Yeah. Or pushing them off the thing as well. But yeah, so with the animated film, what I find crazy is the fact that the creator, Tom Taylor, didn't even know that it was happening, had no involvement in it whatsoever. I just find that crazy. And it was the same for Superman Red Sun, because they didn't. I did an interview with Mark Miller years and years and years ago, just before that film was coming out, and I said, "Are you excited for the film?" And he's like, "Oh, I didn't even know it was happening." I'm like, "How do you? Surely you have to ask permission or something." You'd think.
Or at least they credit them in the beginning, so it always says based on, so you know where to read it. And the DC app is really, really good with lining up like books with like, oh hey, if you like Batman the Long Halloween, here's Batman the Long Halloween, the one it's based on. I can like read it, yeah.
And what I love as well, that especially recently with all the trailers and the films that have come out or coming out, they've told you which books are like the key ones to read, and that they've been selling out. Like even it hasn't had the same treatment in terms of read this for this film, but Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, like that shot up in prices. It's just been insane. And
Authority's been getting re-releases too.
Yeah, that's been everywhere. Every time I go to Forbidden Planet or a comic shop, they are the ones that are always at the front, especially Flashpoint at the moment because of the Flash film coming out. So if you are a fan of Injustice, the series, the game, the animated film, you have to read Adventures of Superman John Kent, because it's all coming back. It feels like we're going back 10 years ago. But in this series, Val-Zod seeked the help of John Kent to stop somebody, I'm not going to spoil who, from killing Kal-Els across the multiverse, and that mission leads John to the Earth in which Injustice happened. We've only really been there for the past 2 issues, I think, but it has been really interesting to see John and Injustice Superman interact, because I don't know if you remember, I think it was the Son of Kal-El series, John asked Superman, why don't you do more to stop all of these things from happening? And Superman kind of explained why he didn't. And this Injustice Superman shows John exactly what his dad would be like if he were that kind of person. I think it's really interesting to see. It's seeing him learn more as to why his dad is the GOAT, like the best.
Yes, you hit it. Like the regime Superman is the answer to John's question. Yeah, you hit that right on the net right there. Yep.
And even though Injustice it's Superman, but I'm going to say Injustice Superman so it's not confusing. But he kind of tells John what happened there, but he does skip out every single detail of the dictatorship, the fighting, everything he's done, all of that. He kind of just skips over it as if to be like, look, there's no crime here, everything's fine and dandy, and it doesn't take John long to sort of realize or see what's going on with all of that and why there's no crime, no disturbances or anything like that in the universe. And yeah, like I said, it's only been 2 issues, but I'm so invested in this. Like, I need to know everything now. Nick Coffey, you should come to Metropolis, Illinois, June 9th to 11th for the Superman Celebration Festival. It's awesome. I know it is. I've seen all of the pictures. It's just I just haven't been able to get there, and I won't be able to get there this year. But
5-hour
one
drive.
year I will get there. Is it? That's not too bad.
Yeah, I'm in Illinois, but I'm in Chicago, so I'm like at the other side of the state, though. So we got to go like all the way down.
Yeah, it's for me too.
It's on my to-do list.
I've been to Metropolis a couple of times.
Oh, really? I'd love to go. Sorry, we're digressing. So going back to Injustice and Adventure.
Yeah, I've gone through the.
Go on, Dave.
I don't know what all you heard. I was cutting out again. But that's the point I was going to make is that's where I picked up my copy of Superman the Musical was at the Superman Museum in Metropolis, Illinois.
Nice.
So that's a fun place to be.
Yeah, I've spoken to the owners of the Superman Museum quite a few times, and when I go there, I want to meet them because I think Morgan is the main person I've been speaking to, and she's lovely. But yeah, one day I will get there, but not yet. It's very expensive and very far from me.
Yeah.
Anything else to say on Injustice? I know, Sam, you're a big fan. I don't know if you've missed anything that you want to...
Everything that I have said about, I said in my review for the most recent issue. It's like a return to it after like seems so long, because the last major Injustice series we had was Injustice 2 from like 2017. It only went for like 60 or so issues, and we've seen Injustice Superman like in small like cameos in DC throughout, like in the Convergence event, like it was like you could see him sometimes, but never was like fully like elaborate on it. At this point where John is in the Injustice world, I don't think the events of the game happened yet. So I mean, it's interesting if it's going to be like in the main Injustice canon, or if it's, I'm still interested to see where it takes place, or if it's like taking place during one of the years.
Yeah, I didn't think about that actually. Like, at what point is
the
this
Injustice continuity? Yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. But what I do like as well is that, well, I don't know if I like it, but the whole, from when this story arc started, you had the other character as the, well, you know, it's been out a couple of issues now. I'm going to spoil it. I'm sorry. Ultraman is the person that's killing off all these Kal-Els, and I thought that was going to go on for a long time, because that is, you know, the fight between John and Ultraman and everything that happened between them. I thought that was going to be spread out a little bit longer, I have to admit, but it was cut very short.
Oh yeah, that's the one. Right? Yeah, I thought it was going to be huge.
Which goes back to Man of Steel. That's, as soon as I saw that, I was like, Man of Steel, great. But I'm not going to spoil that part, because that bit is one of those moments where you read it and you actually like, you're shocked. It's so good. And Tom Taylor just makes all of these universes and he brings them together really, really well. And I think he's done it really, really, really well in this, because it's a great jumping on point for people that aren't familiar with Injustice, especially if it's dropping him in a point where it hasn't, not everything's happened yet, because people can go back and read it before carrying on with the series to get the full effects of it, if that makes sense. But yeah, I'm excited for what's to come. And yeah, like I said, if you're a fan of Injustice and you haven't read Adventures of John Kent, make sure you do, because it's very good.
Yeah, and it's just interesting seeing, you know, Jonathan in a world, in a DC like continuity that existed before he did, because he's only, you know, in the first issue of Injustice, you see, you know, Lois Lane pregnant. At that point, like, I've never seen a pregnant Lois Lane, so like I didn't know in the main Superman story if she, you know, had John at that point. I think it was like 2012. The New 52 was going on, so they took a step away from that, but I don't know if it was announced that they had a kid or not at that point. But,
John didn't show up until Convergence, so that was
like
that was towards the end of. Yeah,
Convergence 2015. Like,
yeah, that was the. I could find it real quick.
No, I know the Convergence. I picked up a couple of issues from it. I remember it was like when it was like right at the time when they stopped putting the New 52 on their comic books. It was like when they just like everyone knows what it is now.
Yeah, they did put that on there for quite a while, didn't they?
Yeah. About 3 years in, it was when they finally took it off.
It's new, not quite. So
the old 52.
Yeah, the old 52. We'll move on to the 90s, which is the best decade of all, because it was the year that I was born. Well, not the year, but the decade in which I was born.
96.
Oh, you're 96. I'm 93. But does anybody notice that a lot of the comics at the moment are making a comeback to all of the characters that were huge back in the 90s? So ever since, well, the Death of Superman turned 30 this year, and there just seems there's been a lot of comebacks from that series, or those that were introduced in that particular story arc. First of all, we've got Steel, who is massive now, I feel. He's got got his 30th anniversary celebration book coming out in the next few months. He's playing a huge part in Superman and Lois alongside Natasha Irons. He's now back in the Superman family thanks to Philip Kennedy Johnson's Action Comics run, and that's kind of led to a spin-off in this 3-part story that I was talking about earlier, which started in Action Comics 1054, which is called The Engineer of Tomorrow, I think. So that explores Steel being, well, he's kind of revealing the truth, and he's exploring him being a CEO and dealing with all the aftermath of what happened before and people using his weapons for bad and all things like that, which is going to be very cool. And that's what's going to lead on to the next series, which is going to be his very own series called Steelworks. I can't remember for the life of me if it's a mini-series or whether it's an ongoing series, but it's written by Michael Dorn, who voices Steel in the Superman animated series. And that's set for release in the next few months as well. And there's a lot that can be told for these characters. Like, he's been around for 30 years, but there's so much that we haven't actually explored. I feel like he's been underused quite a lot.
Yeah, a lot of the Superman fan. I'm sorry.
So I was just so we're talking about all these iterations of Steel, and Morgan says not the Shaquille O'Neal. I haven't actually seen that, but I've heard terrible things about it.
We should all just sit down and watch it. Every time I talk to my dad about it, he's always like, Shaq? I'm like, no, not Shaq.
It's worth it one time just to see, because I think Judd Nelson's in it too, and it's like, why did you agree to this movie? So.
The 90s were really a time of like experimental like superhero movies. Like they had the Spawn movie, they had a lot of like
that was actually pretty good.
Superman project. They had Batman and Robin. It was like a lot of like I don't know.
Oh, yeah, they did do the Batman and Robin, wasn't it? It was George Clooney at the time, I think. And Andrew
just walked out of that movie. So.
That Steel series is a 6-part series.
Meteor Man. Someone mentioned Meteor Man. Oh my goodness.
I've never even heard of that.
That is a throwback right there. It's a comedy, or they tried to make it a comedy.
What's that other one movie with Liam Neeson on Darkman? Yeah, there was Darkman in the 90s.
Darkman, yes. That's also Sam Raimi. So that was it's like a Sam Raimi take on the Shadow. It's pretty interesting. Well, at least I think it is. But I like that movie, so I'm a hard judge. So it's. I don't know.
I do think one of the best. I guess it's not a superhero, but it's from comics. The best 90s. Actually, I don't know if it is 90s. Blade? Is that 90s or 2000s?
Probably.
Yes, Blade was in the 90s.
Yeah, I love that series.
No, it was you got the Mask too. That was a comic book series.
Yeah, the Mask is brilliant. I love the Mask.
Yep.
Legend. But in terms of
one of my favorite Jim Carrey movies.
I think I used to the Batman and Robin. It was the one. That's the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger in it, isn't it?
Yeah.
I used to love that film, and it's only recently that I rewatched it. Well, not recently, probably like the past 4 years or so that I rewatched it. I realized how terrible it was and how much of my life I wasted. Because I used to be obsessed with. I will say that Poison Ivy, Uma Thurman, she was great. I thought she was great.
Yeah.
But the rest of it, pretty rubbish.
Pretty so sad.
We're talking about like the 90s and Steel. Yeah, Steel. Just the Superman family in general, like Steel, Superboy, sometimes it was all introduced in the 90s because like up until that point it was like, Batman had the big family. Like there's that one joke I don't know what Batman made. Maybe it was George Clooney. Maybe it was like he made that joke where it's like, this is why Superman doesn't have a sidekick. That's what it was like.
That's why Superman works alone. Yeah.
Literally like worked alone, but now like it's the complete opposite. Like now, like we have like here's like Steel like making a comeback. Superboy is Connor's back in the coat and everything. Like he's not wearing the t-shirt and everything that was like big from like 2000s, like 6.
Yeah, what I like is that they're kind of making, for a long time, the Superman family has kind of been like sidekicks, haven't they? They've been supporting characters. They haven't been. I know Supergirl and Superboy have had their own titles and stuff, but they've been nowhere near as big as Superman. Whereas when you talk about the Batman family, you know, Robin's a huge deal, Nightwing's a huge deal, and you know all of this. But I think this
Batgirl.
era of comics now, yeah, Batgirl, this era of comics now is what's going to make the Superman family that kind of go to that kind of levels of popularity. I think. I hope, because I like to see more and more of these. So yeah, like you said, Sam, Connor Kent is back as Superboy. I'm going to go as far to say as he's probably people's favorite iteration of Superboy, isn't it? Favorite version, you know, with the 90s, the jacket, the most iconic. I think when I think of Superboy, that's that. Other than young Clark Kent, that's who I think of straight away. And he's back in the Superman family in quite a big way, which is nice to see. He's also got his own series, which is the one that won the DC Round Robin competition last year or the year before. So that it's called Superboy Man of Tomorrow, and that started last month. So I think we're only on the first issue of that, if I remember correctly. But what did you guys think of the first issue?
I really, really enjoyed reading it. I love like the art style with, especially when it comes to like the fighting. It's almost like manga inspired. It does feel like we're getting almost. It's like another version of Supergirl, A Woman of Tomorrow, where it's like they're going off Earth. It does feel like that. So I'm interested to see like, you know, what sort of like, you know, Star Wars like land that he'll go to and what like things we'll get up to.
And I think all the planets that we've seen, because there's quite a few. No, I'm thinking of something else. Ignore me. I'm thinking of Superman Lost.
I know the biggest moment in like Connor Kent's like life, like in comics, was him in Infinite Crisis, like standing up to Superboy Prime, and the book recognizes like it references that. It shows like him because he was wearing the black shirt at the time he was fighting like Superboy Prime. I think he like died during the fight. It was the Infinite Crisis. It was like the Jeff Johns story. It was really, really cool. But that's like the definitive like modern Connor Kent Superboy story.
Yeah, I think other than the death of Superman, like I said, there's a lot of gaps that I've missed with this version of Superboy. So I like the fact that they're bringing him back and that I'm reading, because for me, I can't, because of doing this reading order and obviously keeping up with the reviews and the new comics that are coming out, I can't jump ship and just go to random years and random stories, because it's just going to delay everything that I'm doing. So I'm trying not to do that. Otherwise, I would have done that with Connor Kent. And I genuinely didn't realize that he was the same version of Superboy with the T-shirt and stuff as well. So yeah, I've got a lot to learn about Connor Kent, but I'm glad he's back in comics.
I feel like if like DC kept like the character pressure that they did with like Dick Grayson or like Tim Drake, they did with like Connor from like 2012 to like the present, I think he would be like really, really big. Like, because now Nightwing is huge. Like the Nightwing like series is like selling out. People are always talking about like Dick Grayson. Now he's like I feel like Connor Kent absolutely had like the potential to be that, but no one really talks about like, you know, the Young Justice like heroes anymore. Like the only one they really talk about is Dick Grayson.
Yeah, but speaking of Nightwing, I know it's a little off topic as usual, but there's been a little backup story in the Nightwing series. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's him and John Kent together, and they're kind of like they're doing kind of like the world's finest, but with them. I feel it's like,
I remember that. Yeah,
it's like it's only like 5 pages long or something like that, but it's like little short stories, and they're all connected, and it's like them figuring out. They're like teaching each other certain things that their fathers have taught them, and it's quite cool to see. But I suppose this is the new world's finest team, I guess. But Andrew says gets especially weird when you consider New 52 Superboy isn't the same one technically as the 90s T-shirt present comic.
Yeah, and the New 52, like I remember
totally different.
Yeah, it just completely like dropped. And I remember like it ended after like 25 issues, and then he was just never heard from again.
Well, I do think, like Andrew's saying, it's confusing.
That was a totally different character. They ramped up his power set.
But I think with things like this, to make it more like I had that confusion. Like I thought certain versions of Superboy and other characters were the same, but I know there's lots of Robins, but they all eventually get their own title. Like you've got Red Hood, you've got Nightwing, you've got, I can't think of another one, but they should eventually, because there's too many, and I think the same with Superman. Like there's too many Supermans and Superboys, like with the same title. Like I say, Superman, it's John Kent and Clark Kent, but it can be very confusing, and especially when they're both around and both active at the same time. I think that can be
I
confusing.
think it may be time to dust off the old Super Lad title. Someone's going to have to be Super Lad.
That's not such a bad title.
I think Jeff Loeb used
kind of go the way Mon-El went. One of them could be called Valor.
Yes.
I mean, no one goes by that anymore. Mon-El did that in the Legion. So, that's why not?
Just something to kind of...
Superman Red, Superman Blue.
There you go, and Con Keenan is Superman as well. So there's
with
loads.
The dash, very very important with the dash, like Spider-Man.
Yeah,
important to the silent dash. So you still can't figure out who's who.
Well, this is it. But when you say it, you can't really say Super Dash Man.
Yeah, Super Dash Man.
That
sounds kind of fun.
Do not combine the name. Do not change the names. I think they should, or just have something that makes it super clear that they're not the same person, especially when they're together in a series. Anyway, let's go back to where we were what we were talking about. So the series that's written by Kenny Porter, with art by Jamal Campbell. So yeah, it's great to see him finally get his own series. He's getting the love he deserves. He's in this very series. He's kind of finding his own self, his own character. So I think, hope this leads to more solo series and more solo stories for him as well from this. Fingers crossed.
I like how they placed where they placed it. So I like where they placed it. Like it's right after Dark Crisis, right? So it's before the House of L stuff, and right after that. So it's like we're kind of getting where has he been? Like the whole question during the John Son of Superman stories. Like where's Connor? Well, here he's been out in space. So I like how they they're doing that.
Yeah, it's like they're answering the question. Like they've seen everyone's asking this question. They're like, right, we're going to fill that gap in, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I like that too. It's nice to see, and I really liked that moment in the series before where he goes to the Kent farm and he's staying with Mom and Pa Kent. So it's nice to see their little relationship again in this series. Anyway, so the next one that's making a comeback is Cyborg Superman. I think it's been out for a week or so now, so we are going to talk about the spoilers in terms of Action Comics 1054, in which he made his comeback. So Metallo has been the main villain in Action Comics up until now. We know, originally we thought that Lex Luthor was the one that was pulling all the strings for Metallo and threatening his sister. I think, kidnapping his sister and put her in harm's way, but it's actually not Lex Luthor, and we kind of learned that slowly across the issues. And as the last couple of issues that have come out, we've kind of learned that this character, even though Lex is a very evil character, this character is eviler. It's worse than Lex Luthor. And it turns out to be Cyborg Superman, which I was not expecting at all. Were you?
I had my suspicions. Once they figured out that Lex wasn't the voice in his head, and that they had made the Warworld connection, which is where Cyborg Superman originally kind of got his master plan, I was like, oh, this could be going somewhere. And then it happened, and I was like, oh, it did. Oh wow! Like I'm never right about things, and this time I kind of was. So I was like, ooh. Although I was a little sad that we didn't get more Metallo just doing his thing. But this could be interesting.
Yeah, with Metallo, like Philip Kennedy Johnson, as always, just did a darker. He was quite scary. Like I've read a fair few Metallo stories, and I've never felt that, not intimidated, but worried for Superman. Like because he had the army of clones, and he just took Metallo to the next level, kind of thing. And if he does this with Cyborg Superman, then blimey,
Mhm.
this is going to be.
No, I don't know who I was expecting.
This could be
Like with that reveal, I
Yeah.
thought it was like hyping up maybe like a new like sort of generic like robot head controller villain with like a metal face or something from like the new 52 or no, it's good. I'm happy we're getting more like big Superman villain names. We've really been spoiled with these Superman issues like with the main series like with Livewire and the Parasite. We're just getting our rogues gallery fill. It's great.
And in some interviews, Philip said he actually said that this is the darkest take on the character that we will have seen so far. So, judging by his take on Metallo, I think we're in for nightmare-fueled comics, which are still going to be great, of course. Like, I know it's a slightly darker take on the character, and when you read the series in contrast with each other, like Superman, the Superman series that you were talking about, Sam, that's a little bit scary in terms of what Parasite's been doing, but it seems lighthearted.
It's more lighthearted.
I think that's down to the artwork as well, because it's so good and so bright and stuff. But
Yeah,
Action Comics,
the contrast. I see what you mean.
yeah, it's really
Mhm.
Action Comics seems really gritty to me. Like, it seems real and scary. Like, especially now that Cyborg Superman's pulling the strings. And I don't think at the end of the issue, I don't think Superman actually knows that it's Cyborg Superman, does he?
No, I don't know.
No. So it's going to be interesting to see how or where Superman goes to find the rest of the answers to piece it together. And I wonder what he's got planned for Superman, because he's obviously got beef with him.
He's always had beef with him.
It seems everybody has beef with Superman, even though he's the nicest man on the planet.
That's why.
Yeah.
Yes, that is why.
More people getting some of the limelight, Fire and Ice. Now, Sam and Dave were talking about this announcement before, and I've read The Death of Superman. I do not remember these characters whatsoever personally. But from what I hear, they haven't really been seen since that story arc, but they're making a comeback alongside Power Girl. So, Dave, I'm going to let you take the floor because I don't really know what I'm talking about in this one. But
I know. I have a little bit of an idea too.
oh, well, either of you.
Go ahead, Dave. Yeah.
Fire and Ice.
So Fire and Ice, they were back in Justice League International when there was a Justice League America and Justice League Europe. Fire and Ice was on the American team, and I can't remember a lot about them because I was introduced to them with the Death of Superman, which they were only in like a couple of scenes, right? Because the Justice League of that era gets wiped out real quick, and then Superman comes in, and on and onward, right? So. Yeah, I know Guy Gardner had a thing for ice. I want to say she's some sort of ice elemental, like really, like she's from like the from the Norse gods or something, and she's like this fledgling ice elemental person. And Fire either was an actress or a model who's kind of got like Human Torch like powers. And so after the JLI stuff, they came in and out. Like there was certain places they would make cameos, they would do stuff, but they really hadn't had a limelight. I think Tom King did some stuff with them during his Human Target run, and now all of a sudden we're getting some stuff with them in Smallville. So I'm kind of like, why are these two in Smallville? But hey, the promo image was the Powerpuff Girls. If you haven't seen it, everyone immediately like memed that. So. But even then, like it'll be interesting because they were very interesting, like sisterly characters. Because one's fairly naive and the other one thinks she's more worldly. And the JLI was that Wahaha League that they always kind of talk about, where it was a little bit more hijinks than it was actually defending the Earth. That's when the blue and the gold took off and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see these heroes, running around Smallville, Kansas for a few issues.
Yeah. Well, I've seen them in Justice League Unlimited too. Like they've had cameos in that show. Yeah. I'm familiar. Yeah. Always bugged me that Fire's green. So for some reason, she'd be like the Human Torch, but it's green. She turns green.
But, I think that's copyright. They can't make. And she did go by Green Flame for a while until she got, I think, Green Fire or something like that. Until someone was like, we'll just call you Fire. So
Yeah, I think Green Fire sounds better personally, but anyway.
Yeah.
So it looks like they're not
Yeah.
running around Smallville on their own. It seems like they're going to be teamed up with Power Girl a little bit. So their series is called Fire and Ice Welcome to Smallville, which obviously they're going to be in Smallville. But it's going to launch from the Power Girl special issue 1, which is out at the end of this month. So there's a backup story in that which sort of sets this story arc on its course. So it's going to be written by Joanne Stara with art by Natasha Bustos, colors by Tamara Bonvillain, who does what series does she do?
Action Comics.
She did Son of Kal-El.
That's it, Son of Kal-El, and yeah, she's amazing. And letters by Ariana Maher. And yeah, here's the synopsis. So it doesn't really give much information, but in the introductory tale, Fire and Ice respond to a natural disaster in Baltimore, debating whether to involve Ice's old flame, Guy Gardner. When Guy causes some major drama at the scene, Superman gets involved to stop the fight. Doesn't really explain what they're doing or why they're in Smallville, but we'll see. But I like that it says introductory tale, so it seems like there's going to be more. So that's quite cool. Mm-hmm. Something to look forward to. I hope, like I said, I don't really know much about the characters, so this will probably be my, other than the Death of Superman, which I can't remember them in, but this is probably going to be my first introduction, so hopefully they're pretty cool. But like you say, Dave, the cover of, I think it's the cover of Fire and Ice or the cover of the Power Girl special really does look like the Powerpuff Girls. I agree.
That's neat.
Which I'd be there for that too. Like if they wanted to kind of turn those three into like a like the new Birds of Prey, only it's the super team or whatever. But that would be fun. Yeah. Three of them just go.
and Power Girl's obviously making a comeback as well. Like she's been in the backup story of Action Comics as well. She's got the special, and she's also getting her own series as well soon. I can't remember exactly when that's coming out, but that's happening. But yeah, she's another character I don't know a lot about. I know she's in the Superman family, but I didn't really know the ins and outs. And they're kind of, especially in that backup story, even though she's got an extra power because of the Lazarus storm or the planet thing, disaster. She's got an extra power, but it's done a good job of kind of explaining who she is and what kind of person she is, and that she feels like an outsider in the Superman family. And yeah, I'm intrigued to see more of her. Going back to that timeline, the 90s comics as well, it's kind of a new character, but it's a throwback to the original Doombreaker in the backup stories of Action Comics. So this backup story takes us back to a time between now and the 90s, or the Death of Superman, where Lois and Clark take John to Smallville to hide out from the events of Doombreaker, which is the spawn of Doomsday. And it kind of, what was it, a bone of Doomsday?
Yeah, like bone spur.
Yeah, I can't remember how Doombreaker came about, but it was something to do with the bone, and a poor innocent man turned into Doombreaker, and he's just gone for all the Kryptonians, which of course is Clark and John. But it takes us back to a time where John was younger, and I think this is really cleverly done, because I didn't ever think that they would go back to this time or this story arc. I thought when we got the Death of Superman 30th anniversary special story, which started this, I thought that was it. I didn't realize they were going to carry it on in Action Comics, but I'm really glad that they did. But it's a direct follow-on from the Lois and Clark series by Dan Jurgens, isn't it? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they're calling it Lois and Clark 2 even. So
yeah. But so far, we've kind of seen that John has stolen the bone of Doomsday to stop people from getting it, I guess. But yeah, that hasn't really played out that much, so I'm sure that's to come. But so far, John's kind of had his own adventure with a princess who slowly starts to tell her story and intentions throughout the issues. I'm not going to say the last part I read, because I can't remember whether it's whether it's embargoed or if it's been released yet. So, but it's an interesting one, and it's quite a plot twist when you read it. So if you haven't read it, read it. Are there any other topics that you guys want to bring up in terms of Superman that has happened recently, or any stories that you want to bring up that you've particularly liked?
I'm just waiting for the Eradicator now. That's the only one that they're missing.
I think we're going to get the whole Reign of Superman group back together.
Yeah, they kind of. I think they have to now.
They did one right before Death Metal, where his plan involved Daxamites instead of Kryptonians. Because like there's a whole bunch of Daxamites, I can go use them. And then we haven't heard from him since then. So because I think he went off with Zod to New Krypton, and that's still kind of nebulous. Like what's going on with that group? Who knows? Maybe it is in the works, but it's kind of like he's the only one left. It's like, where's he at?
It feels inevitable. Like you can't bring all of the other ones back and not the Eradicator. You have to do it. We've got a few recommendations, which one of them. Well, we'll go in order. So Future State was so long ago that I can't really remember much of it. I know there was that huge story of John. It jumped to the future where he was Superman, right?
Yeah.
But that's it's kind of playing out, I guess. It's leading towards that.
Yeah. It's all.
But other than that, I can't actually remember very much of it.
The Future State Action Comics was the War World ones. That already happened.
World stuff.
Oh, okay.
House of L was introduced.
That was brilliant.
So it'd be cool to see more of them. But
and I think,
the John Kent stuff, that kind of didn't happen now. Like that was like supposed to be what was happening while Clark was away, and so there was a different story that happened instead. So.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, I need to refresh my memory of that because it's kind of just gone. But I do remember the House of Al, and that was really good, and all those descendants of Superman were really cool. But Philip Kennedy Johnson before a while ago said that wasn't the last that we would see of them. So, and I think in Action Comics at the moment, obviously you've got Thal-Lar, who hasn't been around much, who is going to, or is likely to return. Well, they're not going to introduce a character like that and then just bye, see you later kind of thing.
Yeah,
and I'm sure she was something to do with the House of. I can't remember. I need to refresh my memory. I'm just guessing. Don't take anything I said for definite. I'm just guessing. My Adventures with Superman. Yeah, so that series. We got a little bit more news. As Ilias is saying, there's a teaser trailer for it, which didn't show very much, but I did like what I saw. It kind of
looks really good.
Yeah, I'm a kid that grew up on Pokemon, and it gives me, even obviously not with the little creatures and stuff, but it gives me the Pokemon vibes in terms of animation style and probably target audience as well so far. I don't know.
I think the term is
going on adult.
Yeah, so that's been the whole debate, hasn't it? Because it's aimed towards a younger audience, but it's on Adult Swim.
Yeah,
which is a little bit darker than a younger audience, from what I know. We don't have it in the UK, so I'm not too familiar with it.
No, you don't.
Might be the same case with how they put like the last season of Samurai Jack on it. Like all of us kids like grew up like watching Samurai Jack on Cartoon Network, and then finally after years the last season comes out, but because it's like more like intense, they put it on Adult Swim, which is good. It wasn't like there was anything like adult rated. It was like the action was just more intense, which is good. So when I see like a superhero, something like Justice League War World just got an R rating. Did you hear about that? When I hear news about that, like, oh, it's not gonna be like gross. It's just the action is just gonna be more intense, probably. I mean, it's like, what are you gonna do with the Justice League?
Or you'll see heads roll or something. More explosions of bodies.
There's a lot of returning.
Yeah, it's all the current animated universe characters. So that's not nice.
I always love the DC animated verses they've had going. Like I love the one they had from like 2011 to 2020. It had good stuff.
Yeah, and I like that they've kept the same people as well, because it builds like a universe. It's not just a one-off thing. Speaking of animated films, we could talk a little bit about DC Ruby if you guys have seen it.
The what?
DC
the
what?
Ruby, Justice League Ruby crossover animated.
Ruby.
I looked up more about that. I looked up more about Ruby. It's kind of like almost like a fairy tale sort of genre where they're like hunting like magical creatures. Like when you were talking to what's his name? I'm sorry, I wasn't there for it.
Chandler Riggs.
can't remember. Did he like kind of explain what? Did he know what RWB was or anything? Like
He
the
kind of
grasp on it?
he
I
said
really have
that,
yet to meet anyone who like is like religiously into it or just on the latest, because I know it's like the big thing.
yeah, I had never heard of it until this series, to be honest. I know there's a DC Ruby comic book series as well, which this is kind of loosely based off, I believe. But yeah, when I spoke to Chandler Riggs, who voices Superman, he was familiar with obviously the Justice League, as everybody is, but he wasn't that familiar with Ruby, but he is a big anime fan. So he went, when he got the role, he then went back and caught up on Ruby. But as someone who has no idea who Ruby are, I actually really enjoyed it, and I probably would. I wouldn't be, not at the moment because I'm pretty snowed under with the Superman stuff at the moment, but I probably would go back and pick up a Ruby comic, or watch a series or something like that, because they were interesting characters and they had interesting power sets, and they kind of, I don't want to spoil it for you because you haven't seen it, but in this film that you could kind of start off and they don't know what's going on, you don't know what's going on, so you kind of learn it together, and they kind of buddy up with members of the Justice League, and they kind of have similar roles as they do in Justice League. So for example, one of the characters is called Ruby. She teams up with not teams up, but she kind of buddies up with Superman, who's the leader role in their team, and they kind of support each other there. So they do that quite a lot with a lot of the other characters. I can't remember the name of the individual characters other than Ruby, but the one that teams up with Green Lantern is pretty cool as well. It's just really cool. And Batman, the one that teams up with Batman's great. She's my favorite, and she really reminds me of, I don't know if you're that into Tekken, but Lily, the character. She really reminds me of her, which she's my favorite. Yeah. Jurassic Lion Ruby, the show rules and is a lot of fun. The movie was surprisingly very heavy Ruby in action and story. I was surprised how sort of non-fan friendly it was, and I love Ruby.
That's good that it's really accessible then. Like, you don't have to be niche to watch it.
That's it. Like, you don't, I had no idea who the characters are, but you kind of get to, because they buddy up with the characters of the Justice League, who I am familiar with, you kind of get to know what kind of people they are. It is really fun. The animation is difficult at first because it's so different to the other DC animated ones that we've seen. But once you've watched it for about 10, 15 minutes, it's really, really good. And the fight sequences are brilliant, and it's all anime style, and it's just totally different to what we've seen before. I liked it. That's all the topics that I have this month. I say this week. But I think we're going to leave it there. I know you're all throwing suggestions in, but we'll save some of them for next time, and we'll make a longer plan for the next month's podcast. But a huge thank you to everyone for taking the time to listen, and even more so if you're joining live and getting involved. It's always great to get some debate and discussion going on. Before I go, 2 friends of mine are running a comic mart in Newport Indoor Market on Saturday, 20th of May. I promised that I would mention it on the podcast. So if anybody's in the UK or around the area, please do check it out. They've got lots of old, new comics, bronze, silver, golden age, whatever you're looking for, you'll find something there. Lots of DC, Marvel, Image comics. So yeah, it's on it between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. And yeah, if you're around the area, please do go and have a look. They're great guys. And yeah, they'll do all sorts of bundles and stuff like that. But yeah, a huge thank you all for taking the time to listen, and we'll see you next time for episode 40. Bye-bye.
All right.